All right, Mr. Lowry, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, sir. A little farther forward.
Just go right in the middle of the court.
All right. You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name?
Dakota Lowry, DAKOTALOWRY,
And where do you live, Dakota?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Did you just fly in yesterday?
Yes, sir.
And what is your relationship with Letecia Stauch?
That's my sister.
Pretty tough for you being here right now?
Yes, sir.
Hang in there, all right?
Why, Tecia?
Mr. Lowry, do you need a moment?
Take a break for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have you step back in that back of the jury room for a few minutes. All up for the jury, please. Thank you. You may all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Mr. Lowry, you going to be okay?
That was a big outburst. So that was today in court, Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, in the case of the People versus Letecia Stauch. And that was Letecia Stauch's younger brother, Dakota Lowry. He was pretty emotional. It was like before court even started. Well, they started early today, and he hadn't seen his sister since he came to Colorado back around the time Gannon Stauch, his 11-year-old nephew, was reported missing. He saw his sister for the first time in that courtroom in 3 or more years, and he couldn't hold it in. He screamed at Letecia the question we all have. Why, Tecia? I don't know if she reacted. It's still hard to tell her reactions from so far away. But I don't even think that made her emotional or break down. Not that I could tell. You can listen to all of Dakota's testimony coming up. It's emotional. He's from Lumberton, North Carolina. It might be hard to understand. He's very emotional. It was a mix between being totally frustrated with him, the way it started, to being totally appreciative of what he had to say. He didn't want to be there. He was subpoenaed. He came anyway, and he was frustrated. He thought his sister was the type of woman who would never do what she's accused of doing. So when Dakota came out to Colorado in 2020 to help Letecia because he felt like Letecia was being railroaded, he got all these sob stories from Letecia about the cops throwing her down and her daughter Harley down at the marshals, and he felt they were all being looked at as criminals. He just thought they were being railroaded. But what he had to say about that suitcase that Gannon was ultimately found in is like he put a nail in Letecia's coffin. Dakota initially seems like he's holding back. He's very upset. Maybe he doesn't understand all the questions, but he gets to the point where he tells what happened. He gets there, he helps Harley and Letecia take their stuff out of the 6627 Mandan Drive house, the same house where cops believe Gannon lost his life. Dakota did not remember seeing that green suitcase that Gannon was ultimately found in. He didn't remember seeing that come directly out of the house. But he did remember seeing Letecia struggling with it later when they switched different cars or rental trucks. Today was a whole bunch of rental truck car expert, kind of boring testimony, so I'm bringing you the highlights again. When he saw Letecia struggling with that green suitcase, he had a bad feeling about it. He asked Letecia, what's in that suitcase? He didn't mention any bad smells or anything, but he did mention she was struggling with it and she claimed it was just softball stuff in there. He offered to help her with it. She didn't want any help. We know now that Letecia roped her family into helping her, and likely she was carrying Gannon's 90-pound body at that point. I'm not sure how much the weight changes after a person goes to heaven or not, but Dakota's testimony was very powerful. He was very emotional. They had to take a break. They came back. He collected himself. He talked about how he felt like they were looking at them all as criminals in Colorado, not just Letecia when they came out to help. They got a little bit into their background growing up. I'm sure he must have looked at Letecia as a mom figure, because she's like 14 years older than him. He must only be like 26 years old or so right now. He was a little boy. He had an alcoholic father, James Lowry. James Lowry actually gave little Dakota, when he was 3 years old, so much alcohol that it harmed him. And then James Lowry was abusive to his mom and Letecia's mom, Deborah, to the point where they had to be taken away at some points. Deborah had to take the whole family away from him, go to hotels until James sobered up. In fact, James Lowry is the stepfather who ended up getting hit and killed on the side of a road walking somewhere. So when Letecia came up with that excuse that her stepfather had been killed, it's like she was flashing back to trauma to tell her new boss. On Monday, January 27th, 2020, she was using a real life situation, but it didn't happen recently. It happened years ago. So Dakota gave more insight into that, the abusive situations that his mom went through, but he didn't know anything about Letecia's stepdad harming her or anything. And he didn't remember a lot because his dad died when he was 7. He was really young when a lot of this stuff happened. Letecia allegedly moved out at the age of 16. So I'm not sure how much time they got to spend together, but Dakota did kind of harken back to memories of going to the beach and stuff. So he had, I guess, some pleasant memories of Letecia, but you can tell he hasn't processed his grief, and he was just upset and angry, and he did make some pivotal points for the prosecution. Initially, when he heard she was going for a not guilty by reason of insanity defense, Dakota said, well, of course, she had to be crazy to do something like that if she did it. I'm paraphrasing, of course. You can see his exact words coming up. Letecia's defense started to kind of grasp onto that, like, aha, her own brother said she had to be crazy to do something like that. But no, he said, initially I thought that, but in the end, I realized basically she's not crazy because she went through too many steps, too much stuff to be insane. And speaking of which, there was a nurse who testified. She was great. A lot of people talked about how nervous she was and out of breath, but she still did great. She's the one who performed that sane exam on Letecia. This is when Letecia claimed some construction worker broke in and molested her, and Gannon jumped on the guy's back trying to get him off, and all those elaborate lies. Well, they gave Letecia an exam, but Letecia ended up leaving the exam. We heard about this not before they could get these new photos of her where it's photos of her face and her hair and the back of her head and all that. And the nurse, this forensic nurse who is used to looking at assault victims and all types of victims, she did not see evidence of what Letecia was claiming. Like, oh, this guy hit me on the back of my head and all of that. You know, she didn't see any bruises. But, however, she did see different lacerations and marks on Letecia's hands. So they got photographs of her hands, but it's not like they were likely bruises from some assault. They were probably bruises from what Letecia did to Gannon. And they got, under her fingernails, and she took her DNA. She could not examine the rest of Letecia's body because Letecia was one of the few so-called victims who left the sane exam before she could get more information. She was asking, well, did this guy, finish basically so she could get some DNA, maybe some semen or something, but Letecia claimed she had taken a shower, and the woman said, no, she didn't look like she took a shower. Her hair was, too greasy to look like she had just showered. Letecia told the woman her daughter Harley was in the waiting room. She's like, oh, Harley's a comfort to me. I'm going to go get her and bring her back in. But of course, Letecia just skedaddled out of there. So we learned a lot today. We learned a lot. There was even testimony and photos of the van where Gannon was likely transported in that suitcase. They had luminol or blue star and it lit up for certain places. So we have different experts testifying different things. So I'm not sure if it was proof positive yet that Gannon's blood or what have you was tested for that particular white van, but it's the van we see from years ago in Spencer Wilson's interview. You see the tail end of that van, and I always wondered if Gannon was right there. He may have been. We don't know if Letecia took him out of the house in that suitcase and stowed him somewhere else until it was time for them to switch over. We don't know all her movements, but we're learning more because of all these car forensics and all these experts. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 12th, should be really good because we will get to see Letecia's video interviews. It should be like 4 or 5 hours long, so it should be a lot of Letecia's lies on Wednesday, April 12th. For now, let's read Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Thank you. You may all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Mr. Lowry, you going to be okay? Need a few minutes?
Yes, I just want to get it over.
Okay. Here's the way that the process works, is that I understand that you want to get it done. I understand that. But we have to have the jury in here, and you're going to be subject to questioning by the prosecution and then by your sister's attorneys. You understand all that? Just do the best that you can. Just take a breath. Do you need some water or anything like that?
Yeah.
There's some water right there if you want some, or you can pour it into that cup there. So everybody's a little nervous when they're on a witness stand. Just take a deep breath.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It happens. It's an emotional case. I get that. But you just have to do the best that you can to get through the testimony, okay?
And with the court's permission, can I just ask some follow-up questions? Mr. Lowry, I know this is very difficult for you, okay? But I really want you to focus on me, and I know your wife's here as well. And I'm just gonna ask you some questions and we'll get through this, okay? But it's important that you gotta kind of keep your cool,
Okay.
all right? Can you do that?
I'm trying my best. I can't make no promises, but I try my best.
And I appreciate that. I know it's difficult for you here, but we'll get through this, okay? And if you need a break, just let us know. If you feel something coming up or you want to have an outburst, do the best you can and let us know, and perhaps the court, we can take another break, okay? Is that fair?
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and bring the jury back in. We have the other camera. All rise for the jury, please. All right, thank you. You may all be seated. Record should reflect the jury has returned to the courtroom. Mr. Young?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Lowry, this is your first time being in a courtroom ever, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you're probably extremely nervous.
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna get through this, okay? I'm just gonna ask you some questions and we're gonna have a conversation. Is that all right with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you let the jury know about your other family members, other brothers and sisters, your parents, that kind of thing?
I got another sister. Her name's Julie. I got a sister named Amy. My mom, Deborah. I mean, that's pretty much.
And then it
Got my nieces, all my nieces.
What's your niece's name? Do you remember?
Got Harley, Jazz, Kanae, Cash, Maya, Jada.
And is Deborah your mother?
That's my mom, yeah.
And just for the most part, did your family grow up in North Carolina, where you're from, Lumberton, and
Yes, sir.
some still living out there?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned that Letecia Stauch is your sister,
Yes, sir.
and you see her in the courtroom today.
Yes, sir.
Could you point her out and describe what she's wearing?
A green sweater.
And when was the last time you saw her?
When we came down here in 2020.
So January 2020?
Yes, sir.
And so I want to talk about that a little bit. When you said you came out here, who came out here?
Me, my mom, and my Aunt Brenda.
And what's Brenda's last name?
Ackward,
What's your mom's last name?
Locklear.
Why'd you come out here?
We come out here to help support Tecia because we felt like she was being wrongly accused for something that we believe she would never do.
And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
We also wanted to come out here and help look for him. We did.
Go ahead and take a deep breath, all right? You let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
So you wanted to come out and help. You refer to her as Tecia.
Mhm.
And you also wanted to look for Gannon.
Yes, sir.
So do you remember when you came out?
January 31st, I think. 30th. It was late January. It was about to be February because my mom's birthday was that weekend or something, that next week.
And why particularly did you come out?
Because I knew my mom was going to come out here.
Did you want to support your mom?
Yes, sir.
Now, was it January 30th of 2020 when you all flew out here?
I believe so.
Where did you fly to? Do you remember?
Denver.
You got to Denver, what did you do?
Went looking for her and Harley.
Rent a car?
Yeah, we rented a car from the airport.
Did your aunt Brenda Awkward rent the car?
Yes, sir.
And did she pay for you all to come out here?
Yes, sir.
And
Mr. Lowry, you're kind of soft-spoken at times. Could you put the microphone a little bit closer to you so the jurors can hear you a little better? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
so when you get to Denver, your aunt rents a car. What was the game plan? What were you going to do?
To get Tecia and Harley, at least two around us.
And did they know you all were coming out?
Yeah.
And so do you recall renting a Nissan Altima?
I think so.
You drive down to Colorado Springs, I assume?
Yeah.
Who was driving? Do you remember? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Aunt Brenda.
And so what happens when you get to Colorado Springs? Where do you go?
Like a shopping center. Because that's where we found them at.
Were you guys talking to him on your way down?
Yeah, when we was looking for him.
And so would this be a shopping center kind of on the north side of town next to a Marshall's department store?
Yeah, there was a Marshall's there.
And did they tell you why they were, or let me ask you this, did the defendant, Tecia, tell you why they were at the Marshall store?
She didn't tell us why. Not that I can remember.
Did she tell you whether or not she had an interaction with some
Yes.
police officers?
Yes, sir.
And you have to kind of wait till I finish asking the
Oh,
question
sorry.
because
Yeah.
she's typing everything down we say, okay? So what did she tell you happened prior to you getting there?
That the laws had thrown her down and detained her.
Say anything about Harley?
Yes, Harley. They said also Harley.
That upset you?
Yes, it did.
So where did you go after you went to this Marshall's parking lot area to pick them up?
I went and got a hotel.
And do you remember the name of the hotel?
No.
Does the extended suites sound familiar?
Yeah, Standing Suites.
So what happened when you got to the extended suites?
That was when they was discussing wanting to get their stuff back, like get their belongings.
And who was discussing that?
Tecia.
Once you picked up the defendant and her daughter Harley, who was kind of calling the shots as to what you were going to do and where you're going to go and things like that?
I don't really know.
Well,
I'm type like I said, I'm the type of person that likes just stand in the corner and wait until they just tell me what they want to do.
you're just there to help?
I'm just there.
So how many rooms did you end up getting at the extended suites?
I can't remember.
Did you spend the night there that night?
Yeah.
Do you remember who was in your room?
I know my mom was. I believe Aunt Brenda was with us. I can't remember if we had just one room or two rooms.
Okay. Well, was Harley and your sister, the defendant, in the room with you?
We was around each other most of the time, like all of us was together most of the time.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that the defendant was talking about wanting to get her stuff back. What did you do the next morning to do that?
We rented a van.
And who rented the van?
Aunt Brenda.
So Brenda Awkward rents, what kind of van did she rent?
Like a cargo van, I guess you would say.
And so did all of you go to rent the van?
I don't know if all of us went or not. I believe we did.
So it's you, your mother, Deborah, Brenda Awkward, Harley, and the defendant, Tecia. Where do you go?
I know at one point she tried to go to the police station and get her pocketbook and stuff like that.
Tell the jury about that. Where exactly did she go? And you probably don't know Colorado Springs very well, right? So did she tell you she's going to the police department? And did you actually go to the police department?
Yeah, we went to the police department.
And did she go in to try to get her belongings back that was taken?
Yeah, she did.
You know whether or not she got those items?
I can't remember.
So where do you go from the police department?
I think that's when we went to their house to get their clothes and stuff.
So this would have been January 31st now, 2020?
I believe so.
The next morning?
That Friday.
So what happens when you get to her house?
We just started loading up the clothes and stuff that was coming out of the house.
Were there police officers there?
Yes, sir.
What were the police officers doing?
They was checking everything we brought out,
How were they checking it?
like looking in the bags and I guess just making sure there wasn't nothing that they weren't supposed to be there.
And how did you feel about being at the residence that morning?
Just aggravated.
And why were you aggravated?
Because I felt like we was getting looked at as criminals.
Is that because they were looking at your sister as a criminal?
No, they was looking at our whole family. It wasn't just her.
And so, what kind of things did you guys get out of the house? Do you remember?
Suitcases and clothes, that's all I can remember.
Was it all the Harley's clothes and all of your sister's clothes?
Yes, sir.
What was the game plan? I mean, where were you going to move those clothes?
They got their dogs too.
What was the plan on where you were going to go with all the clothes and things? You know?
But I know when she got it, she was ready to leave. She was ready to leave.
And did she tell you where she was ready to leave to?
I thought it was South Carolina.
And is that where she moved out to Colorado from, is South Carolina?
I don't think that's where she moved out of Colorado from.
Well, did she live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a while?
Yes, sir.
Is that where she was planning on going back to?
That's what I thought.
Is that what she told you?
That's what I can remember.
So how long did it take to load up all her and Harley's things into this cargo van?
I can't remember. Over an hour, I guess.
So what happens after you get the van loaded?
We leave and go back to the room, I believe.
Do you remember whether or not your sister had an interview with a news reporter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she did.
Tell the jury about that. How'd that come about?
I don't know how that happened. I just know she just had an interview with him.
And did she tell you why? I mean, was anybody talking to her about doing this? Or?
I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't.
Whose idea was it to have a interview with a news reporter?
I don't know.
Foundation.
Sustained. Jury will disregard the answer.
So when you went to the house, I'm assuming you went in the cargo van. Did you also take the Nissan Altima that was?
Yeah, the Nissan was with us.
Who was driving which vehicle?
I think I was driving the van, and I think Brenda was on the Nissan.
And what vehicle was your sister the defendant in?
Say that again.
What vehicle was your sister and the defendant? Do you remember?
No. I don't remember.
You know, we'll go on to that. So she does an interview with a news reporter. What do you do after that?
I just know we left. I don't remember where we went.
Did you eventually go back to the
We went
hotel?
back, yeah.
Do you remember about what time of day it was?
No.
Go back to the hotel room, and what do you do when you get back to the hotel room?
I know we mentioned something about wanting to go look for him. Because me and my mama, we wanted to go help look for him.
Tell us about that conversation.
Well, we wanted to go. She said she would get up with Albert, find out like when they're going to go out and look for him again or whatever. But we wanted to go, but at the same time, we kind of didn't because we didn't feel like we was getting treated right down here.
Is that because of what happened at the house earlier?
Yeah.
When you first got to Colorado, did you have conversations with your sister about, hey, we got to go out and look for Gannon. We got to go search for him?
We asked if they had any idea where he was at and stuff. I mean, that's about all we asked her.
And did you all ever go search for Gannon?
No, we didn't.
Did she ever say, hey, we got to go look for Gannon?
I mean, she told us that we could. That's all she told us. Like she said, we'd get up with Al and talk to him about it.
She never did. When you get back to the hotel room back on January 31st of 2020, did the defendant leave you all and go somewhere by herself?
Yes.
Overruled.
Did she tell you where she was going?
Go get some dog food for their dogs.
Do you know what vehicle she took?
The Nissan.
The Ultima?
Yes, sir.
And how long was she gone?
A while.
Hour?
I can't remember that. I just know she was gone longer than what I expected.
Was it 2 hours?
I don't know.
You remember sitting around the hotel room wondering where she's at and when she's getting back, that kind of thing?
Well, I did get on the phone with my wife, and I did tell my wife I feel like she's just been gone too long. But
Say that.
because she was gone for a long time, like I can't remember how long she was gone, but I didn't expect her to take that long. But then a part of me was like, well, maybe she's just trying to take her a minute by herself. So
Did anyone try to call her and say, hey, where are you? What's going on here?
no, not that I can remember.
Does she eventually come back?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What happens when she gets back?
I don't know. She came back and she was normal to me.
Did she have any dog food or any items for the dogs?
She had some. She came back with some stuff, like she bought something, but I can't remember.
So earlier you had mentioned that she wanted to go back to South Carolina. What was the plan with the cargo van? Was she going to take the cargo van that Brenda Awkward rented to go back to South Carolina?
I don't know if she was going to take that one because Aunt Brenda wouldn't. I doubt Aunt Brenda was going to let her. I believe Aunt Brenda told her she had to get another van.
And so the next morning, we're now on February 1st, 2020. Did you help her get a new van?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that. What did you and your sister do to get a new van?
We went and drove to the budget place. We got another van. And we got the van. We unloaded all the stuff from out of the van into the other van.
So was that in the early morning hours?
I believe so.
Do you know about what time it was? Is that the first thing you did on February 1st?
I can't remember.
So when you get to the budget area, did you know that you were going to transfer things from one van to another when you got there?
Yeah.
So did you talk about that on the way to the budget rental van?
Yeah.
So talk to the jury about that. How did you guys go about doing that, moving the items from one van to another?
We just went around to the side of the budget place, and we just backed the vans up and just swapped them out.
During that process, did you see the defendant with a rather large suitcase?
Yes, sir. I seen her with a lot of suitcases. Well, there was a lot of suitcases on there.
Was there one that kind of stood out to you?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that. Why did it stand out to you?
Because it looked like she was struggling with it.
Did you offer to help her?
Yep.
What'd she say?
She didn't need help.
Did you ask her what's in the suitcase?
Yep.
What'd she say?
She told me it was softball stuff.
Why'd you ask her what's in the suitcase?
I didn't feel right about it.
What about that suitcase didn't make you feel right?
I just felt like it was too heavy for her.
You know, at this time, I'd like to publish People's Exhibit 48. It's already been admitted into evidence.
Go ahead.
You recognize that suitcase we see on the TV screen?
Yep.
How do you recognize that suitcase?
It's an old suitcase. And I remember that suitcase looked old, and it's green.
Is that the suitcase you saw your sister putting into the budget van?
Yep.
Is that the suitcase you asked her about what's in it?
Yep.
Is that the suitcase you didn't feel right about?
Yep.
Is that the suitcase you told you softball equipment was in?
Yep.
Thank you. Take that down. So what happens after you get everything loaded into the budget van from your aunt's rental van?
At that point, we was ready to go home.
And did you drive Brenda Awkward's van back? And did Miss Stauch, your sister, drive the budget van?
I can't remember if we turned that van in there at that place or if we had to turn it in somewhere else. But I mean, I had to drive one of them because it was just me and her.
So do you eventually turn back? It's an enterprise van, right? Is that where you rented the van that Brenda Awkward
I
rented?
think, yeah.
Did you take that van back?
Yeah, we took it back. I think we took it back later on that day.
And did you take the Nissan Altima back to Denver to catch your flight?
Yep.
What did the defendant tell you where she was going to go?
I don't think I can remember. I don't remember. The only thing I can remember is her saying something about going back to Myrtle Beach.
And did she leave with Harley?
Yeah, her and Harley live.
Did they leave from the hotel?
I can't remember where we split up at. I can't remember where we.
But did your sister have to go back to the hotel to pick up Harley?
Yep. I think so.
And is that the last time you saw your sister until today?
Yep.
How much older is your sister than you?
14 years.
You known her your whole life?
Yeah.
Can you give the jury an idea about the family background? How often when you see her as you were growing up, that kind of
She
thing?
come to like holidays, came around on holidays.
Where would you guys meet? In North Carolina?
But she'd either come down here or go down there, or we might have went to the beach and seen her.
Had you gone to Myrtle Beach on a few occasions to
Yeah,
hang out with Harley?
Yeah, me and her. I used to go down there and stay with them. We'd go to the water park, stuff like that on the weekends.
Can you let the jury know who your father is?
James Lowry.
And would that have been your sister's stepfather?
Yes, sir.
Is your dad still alive?
No, sir.
You know when he died?
My 7th birthday, 2004.
Do you know the circumstances on how he died?
Got hit by a car.
Was he walking out in the street? And
I don't know if he was. I don't think he was on the street. I think he was on the side of the road.
do you know anything about the relationship between your father and your sister, Letecia Stauch?
No, sir.
Had your sister ever told you anything unusual between the relationship between your father and her?
No, sir.
If there had been something unusual, do you think you would have heard about it?
Objection, foundation.
Overruled.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, pretty sure my mom would have said something.
And your mother, Deborah, was she, well, what kind of mom was she?
She was a great mom to me.
What do you say to me?
I'm just saying that had no problem with my mama.
Was she very
I
protective?
think none of us should have a problem with my mama.
Was she very protective of the kids,
Yes, sir.
including Miss Stauch?
Yes, sir.
On these occasions that you spent with your sister, did you have an opportunity to see her interact with other people and make decisions and go through everyday life?
Yeah.
Had you ever known her to have a serious mental illness?
I know, the only thing we always said she probably had was that she was OCD. That was it.
Is that obsessive compulsive disorder?
Well, we used it as excessive cleaning disorder. Like she had to keep stuff clean.
Go ahead and object to the reference of testify as to what he saw and observed, but I'm rejecting him testifying regarding.
That's fair. Mr. Lowry, just talk about what you think as opposed to what all of you thought. So if you think it, it's fine. And just say, this is what I thought based on your contacts with her. Okay. Mr. Young?
Do you understand that? You good with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that she had OCD. Why do you say that?
She liked to keep stuff in a particular spot. She liked to keep everything clean.
But when you're around her, would you make sure that things remain clean? Because she may want to
Yep.
say something to you.
Yep.
Was she the same with Harley?
She was the same with everybody like that, as far as I know.
Anything unusual about that?
No, that's normal to me.
You know other people like that?
No.
Had you ever known her to use different names or identify herself by a different name?
I can't remember.
Do you ever remember her referring to herself as a person named Harmony?
I do know she didn't like her name, but I don't remember her calling herself Harmony.
Did she tell you why she didn't like her name?
No.
Do you ever remember her calling herself Jasmine?
No.
And you said you had a niece named Jasmine or Jazz?
Jaslyn.
Sorry?
Jaslyn.
And are you familiar whether or not your sister liked Disney movies?
I believe she did.
And are you familiar with the movie Aladdin?
Yeah.
You familiar with a character named Jasmine in that movie?
Yes, sir.
Who's Jasmine in that movie?
The princess.
Do you ever remember her talking in a Spanish accent?
No.
You ever seen her in a stressful situation?
No.
How about when you came to Colorado?
Yeah.
During the entire time you're in Colorado with her, had you ever seen her speak in a Spanish accent?
No.
Have you ever heard her refer to herself as Maria?
No.
Does Maria mean anything to you? That name?
No.
You have an opinion as to whether or not your sister has the capacity to know right from wrong.
Thought she did.
Why do you say that?
She's too smart.
Was your sister a really good athlete as well?
Yes, sir.
What kind of sports did she play?
Softball, basketball, baseball.
Was she more of a leader than a follower?
That's what I thought.
Never see her drive a vehicle, for instance.
Yes, sir.
Did she have the ability to stop at red lights, go when it turns green, that kind of thing?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen her, have you witnessed her obey the law?
Yes, sir.
And is that throughout your entire life?
Yep.
And is that for even when you were in Colorado?
I mean, we didn't ride with her. She didn't really drive around with us, but I mean, she acted funny the whole time we was down here, to be honest.
Tell us about that. Why was she acting funny?
She seemed like she was stressed out about everything that was going on, looking over her shoulders. But I figured that was because of the laws was constantly coming after her.
You alluded to this earlier, but she had just been in handcuffs prior to you guys picking her up, right?
Yep.
And do you think that may have caused her to be a little bit paranoid about the police following her and things
Yep.
like that? What about her capacity to do things intentionally, perform intentional acts? Let's talk about the budget rental van. Did you see anything unusual about her ability to rent another van to go to South Carolina?
No.
Does she have the capacity to intend to do things?
Yeah.
Does she have the capacity to make decisions and use judgment and reflection in making those decisions?
Yeah.
What did you think when you heard that she pled not guilty by reason of insanity?
I believe that was the only way she did it at that time.
Did what?
What we're here for.
A moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Those are my questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. Polina.
Mr. Lowry,
Morning.
I know this is difficult. And we've met before, correct?
Yep.
Remember I came and I saw you and your mom and everything out in North Carolina. I want to go back just to the attorney's last question. You indicated she must have been when she did this. And what you're meaning is the Letecia that you know, the only way she could have done something so horrible if she has some type of mental break.
When everything first happened, and we found out that the little boy was found in the body, we found out where he was found. At that point, I knew she did it because when I seen that suitcase and asked her about it, she just acted funny to me. And yeah, I thought she might have snapped and went crazy.
Okay.
But now, no. No.
Okay. And talk Lumberton, you're from Lumberton, North Carolina, correct?
Yep.
And that's kind of a small, how big of Lumberton?
It's not that big.
A pretty small community.
Yeah.
And this case has got a national exposure.
Yep.
And it's got even more kind of exposure, in Lumberton. Lumberton
Yep.
press has, picked up and followed this case pretty closely.
Yep.
And over the 3 years since this has happened, this has caused a lot of shame to come upon you and your family.
Yep.
It makes you feel like in your own town, kind of like an outcast.
Yep.
Like everybody's looking and judging you.
Yep.
Like everybody's looking and judging your mom.
Yep.
And this is all your stepsister's fault.
She's not my stepsister.
You have different fathers, correct?
I mean, I don't consider that a stepsister. That's half.
Okay. This is all your half sister's fault.
Yes.
And you're angry at her for it.
Yep.
When you were out in Colorado during this time, she was acting different than normal.
Yes, she was.
She was pacing up and down. She seemed highly paranoid.
Yep.
Your mother was concerned for her mental health.
Yep.
Did your mom, Brenda, and you all fly back together?
Yeah, me and my mom, her name Brenda.
Okay. You flew out of DIA?
Yeah.
Do you call her during that time in Colorado that you were with her being paranoid and believing there's a black BMW that was following her?
Yeah, she did do that.
Go back. You're actually named after your father? Middle name?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And my grandpa.
Okay. And Ms. Stauch was 16 when she moved out, correct?
I believe.
Okay. So she's 14 years older than you. That would mean you're only 2 years old when she moved out of the house.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So you never had any active memories of her with James or how James treated her?
No, sir.
And you said that she would come home from time to time, but she never came back to North Carolina, never came back to Lumberton to see you guys until after James died.
My dad, I can't remember.
Okay. You indicated, let's go. I mean, I'm going to get into this, and I know you might not like it, but your dad, James Lowry, did have a drinking problem.
Yes, he did, as far as I know.
You would get drunk and you'd beat the piss out of your mom.
Yeah, as far as I know, yep.
Sometimes it'd be so bad that your mom would have to take all you kids to a hotel room till you sobered up.
Yep.
Sometimes your mom would have to go to work and James be the one watching after you kids. Correct?
Yep.
One time, James gave you so much alcohol that you passed out. Well, they went up
Overruled.
one time James gave you so much alcohol that you passed out.
Yep.
And you were so if you passed when you were 7, you would have had to been, what, 4, 5, or 6?
When you asked
You
that,
passed out. Remember how old you were?
I was like 3.
Okay. You indicated that, or I think you said before, that she would sometimes freak out if something was out of place.
Yep.
Stauch. And also, do you recall that sometimes when Miss Stauch would come visit you or see you, sometimes she would leave you knives so you'd be able to protect yourself?
Yep, she did do that.
Further questions?
Great.
Yes, Sheriff, thanks. Tell us a little bit more about your dad. Was he in the armed forces?
Yep.
What branch?
Air Force.
And did he go to war?
I believe he did.
And did that create problems for him?
Yep.
Tell the jury about that. What changed with your dad when he got back from war?
All I know is my mom always told me when he stepped off that plane.
Hold on. Just a moment. Yeah, sustained. You can talk about what you observed. You can't talk about what somebody else told you. Okay?
I mean, I can't really talk about him because I was 3 when they separated. I was 7 when he died.
That's all right.
Okay. That's okay. It's all right.
Now, earlier we talked about your mom being protective of the kids. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
If something was going on with your dad and the kids, what would your mom do?
She don't play about her kids. Something went on between. I don't know how she did Daddy, but I know if something went on between her and like her ex-boyfriends or whatever, and they wanted to come to us or say something to us, she didn't play about us. She protected us.
She protected you kids? Did she protect herself?
Yep.
Did you ever see her hit your dad?
I don't remember hitting on. I don't remember. I can't remember much of my daddy because I was so young. But I know her boyfriend after my daddy, Greg, he would hit on her, and she would fight him back.
Did you want to be here today to testify?
Nope.
Did you get subpoenaed and that's why you came out here?
Yep.
Mr. Tellini was asking you questions about insanity or some kind of mental break. And you said initially that's what you thought, but then you said now, no. What did you mean?
You just. I just feel like it's too much got done for you to be saying that now. For her to be saying that.
Well, do you think when she was telling you that there's softball equipment in the suitcase, she knew right from wrong, had the capacity to form the intent to do things?
Yep.
Meeting overruled.
Those are my questions, Your Honor. Thanks.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for Mr. Lowry? Like we have one. Counsel, retrieve that question and approach, please. Mr. Lowry, do you remember where the green suitcase was retrieved from when you were getting the defendant's belongings at the house?
No.
I will allow reasonable follow-up as to that question only. Prosecution.
When was the first time you saw that green suitcase?
When we was moving to switching the vans.
Did you ever see it come out of the house when you guys are moving things out of the house into the first van?
No. Not that I can remember.
Thanks, Jeff.
Defense. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lowry. You may step down. Just watch your step.
I didn't.